Hi, my name is Karen. I am a Master Food Volunteer, and today we're going to demonstrate pasta with 15-minute burst tomato sauce. It's a great quick dish if you have an excess of cherry tomatoes. It makes a nice fresh sauce. You can use cherry tomatoes, you can also use grape tomatoes, fresh basil, and in the winter, if you don't have fresh basil, you can use dried basil or an Italian seasoning or even pesto to get that basil flavor in your sauce. So the first thing that we have going is we have our pasta in our salted boiling water, and that will cook for about 6 minutes. And I want to point out that this is whole wheat pasta, and you can tell that it's whole grain by the yellow emblem on the box. And what that means is the whole wheat kernel was used to make that pasta. So it has more fiber and more protein than a traditional pasta. So you can use spaghetti. You could use another favorite pasta in this dish also. So with that, I'm going to have the pasta continue to cook. We're going to add, I am making a half a batch of the recipe, 1/4 cup of olive oil to a heated pan. And then we'll also add in our chopped garlic, and there's 2 generous cloves there. And feel free to adjust things like the garlic to your own taste. We're also going to add our tomatoes, and these tomatoes are orange, yellow, a couple shades of red, so you can use colored tomatoes. You can use all red. I also want to point out, I mentioned grape tomatoes. Grape tomatoes are more oblong, and if you use grape tomatoes in this recipe, you would want to cut them in half, and just know that they will take longer to cook because the skin is thicker. For traditional cherry tomatoes, I don't cut them in half typically. You could, but you don't need to. They will burst open, and in the process of bursting open, that juice makes your sauce. So those will also go in. In our skillet with the garlic and the oil. We will also add a little pepper, a pinch of sugar, and a little bit of salt. So all of that will start cooking. It takes probably, for tomatoes this size, a good 15 minutes to cook because they are bigger. And what I like to do once you've kind of got them mixed into the oil is go ahead and cover the pan because they do kind of splatter. So if you don't want to have to clean your stove too much. And now I'll turn up the heat a little more. And we will let those cook away until they start to burst open, and then we will finish the recipe. Okay, the tomatoes have burst open and the juice has formed a sauce. Our next step is to add the pasta into the sauce. And I have saved some pasta water in case we need to thin the sauce down further. And this is about 1/2 pound of pasta and 1.5 pints, or about 3 cups of tomatoes, to give you an idea of what half of a recipe is. And we will toss all that together. Get all the tomatoes up here to the top. Okay, at this point you can turn the burner down on low, And I am gonna chiffonade fresh basil leaves from our basil plant at home. And you roll them up into a tight roll and use a knife or kitchen shears and slice off your basil. So now you have a really colorful dish. Like I said, you could use dried basil, dried Italian seasoning, or pesto if you don't happen to have fresh basil. Okay. I will add just a little bit of water because that sauce is pretty thick. And it could take up to a cup of water, so don't be afraid to add to the thickness that works for you and that gives you a nice sauce. And you can always add just a little bit more basil on top to give it some additional color. And you have a nice, fresh, healthy pasta dish that can be made in about 15 minutes.